for almost a week until they can get to it.
I don't have a script or anything available, do I?
Not
Okay.
necessary, just starting a work session. Hey, Tim, it looks like you're online. Can you hear us okay?
Thumbs up on that.
All right, can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Tim. Hi, Austin. Oh,
Hi, sunshine.
no sunshine out there.
Don't be such a whiner.
Yeah, I've been cold since about 11.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't know how you could in here.
we were.
I'm like, seriously, you can't put a mantis in the middle like this all the time.
We were out in the dunes. Okay, so.
Okay,
Tim will introduce you here in just a moment.
this is the, did I do it too loud again?
No, I'm fine.
November 29th, is it? Or 30th?
Today's the 29th.
Okay, November 29th work session, City of Gerhart is now called to order. We don't have the conflict of interest or anything?
Nope, just a work session, sir.
Okay,
It's like a conversation in a meeting room.
all right,
Is basically how these go. We can have discussions back and forth. We just can't make decisions
Mhm.
based on something that will impact the city of Gerhart. Along with today, we have the draft water management conservation plan. And the main author of that is Tim Hinkle and his crew. And Tim, I'd like to introduce you to City Council. We've got Councilor Dana Gold, Councilor Austin Tomlinson. I'll actually zoom in here in a minute. Councilor Rita Fackrell, Mayor Carrie Smith. And then we have over here on the side, I'm not sure, yeah, you can see him, that's Councilor-elect Preston Devereaux. And then Mark McFadden, which I think you know of, and then Justine Hill also, that I think you've had maybe some contact with.
Great.
So,
Nice to meet you all.
Nice meeting you, Tim. Before we get started, I'm gonna say that we're tabling the EOP today. We'll have that discussion at a later work session. Since it is so large, I don't want to do it tonight. It's gonna go on for hours. Anyway, so Chad, I'll let you go ahead and start us off, and
okay,
we'll chime in as we need to.
well, I'll get going on this here in a little bit and we can go through it. But first, Mr. Hinkle wanted to just give a brief update of where we're at and an introduction to the document.
Great, thanks all. Hope you all had a great Thanksgiving last week and have recovered and back to work. I know I was digging out of my emails from a week off last week. So I'm with GSI Water Solutions. I've been working with Chad and Mark under subcontract with Kevin and Chris at Civil West to update the city's water management and conservation plan, which I'll call WMCP for short. So Chad, again, asked me to chat for about 5 minutes and describe a little bit about what a WMCP is and why the city did one, or rather updated their existing one, and the contents. So in terms of what is a WMCP, it's a water management conservation plan that describes the city's use, management, and conservation of its water resources. And your water resources, of course, is your water right under the permit of G 16390, and also your wholesale water purchases. So most municipal water right holders, like the city, must develop a water management conservation plan based on Oregon administrative rules. The trigger is the water right permit. So when the city was issued a permit for the groundwater that you're currently using, in that permit was a condition that said you need to develop a WMCP within 3 years, which you did, and it was approved. The final order was issued by Oregon Water Resources Department in 2012. And because the WMCP update is required every 10 years, here we are. That's why we're updating the city's WMCP. So what's the purpose of a WMCP? Well, it's a tool that the state uses, frankly, to ensure that the city and other water providers that have water rights is efficiently using the state's water resources and is planning for the future to meet future water demands. On that latter note, some communities got into trouble by not planning far enough ahead, such that eventually they had to issue moratoriums on growth and let their water supplies catch up. That is, find new water supplies. So the WMCP, one of the reasons WMCP is required is so the state makes sure that the water providers have adequate water, and the duration, the minimum duration for the WMCP is 20 years. So that's what we did. We looked out 20 years to find out what the water demand of the city is anticipated to be. And I'll talk about that in just a second. So there are components of the WMCP. If you've had an opportunity to take a look at the draft WMCP that was in your packet, you've noticed that there were 4 primary sections. The first section is the water supplier element. And that's just a history of the city's water demand and the city's customers' consumption. It talks about your water right. It assesses your water right, its reliability and adequacy. It briefly discusses your water system. The WMCP is different from a water system master plan in that it doesn't really focus on infrastructure. It really focuses on the management of water. And not necessarily the movement of water within your system, which the Water System Master Plan does. So there's some overlap, but they're distinct documents. Then there's the conservation element, and there are 6 required conservation pieces that the city is required to develop conservation measures for and abide by those over the 10-year period. And so in the conservation element, we describe the previous 10 years, and if the cities met their obligations for those 6 conservation measures. And then we talk about those measures and what the city intends to do over the next 10 years. And for the most part, we continued on the city's conservation measures. Then there's a curtailment plan, and that, as it sounds like, it's a standalone document, really, that the city can use in the event of a water supply shortage. That was largely carried over from your previous WMCP as well. And then finally is the water supply description, chapter 5. And in that chapter, that's where we talk about what the future demand is anticipated to be for the city. And again, we looked out 20 years. And what we found was that relative to the maximum day demand for the city in 2021, which was 1.22 CFS, we found that in the next 20 years, we anticipate demand reaching 2.22 CFS. So about a 60% increase And that's just due to natural growth associated with the city. And in that section, we then describe that the city will continue to rely on its groundwater right to meet demand as a primary source. And then the supplemental supply will come from water acquired from outside sources. I did want to make and this simply just reflects current status or current conditions. I do want to make a note that it doesn't mean that the city can't or shouldn't seek other water rights to acquire, so that you can solely rely, or at least more rely, on your own supply. So it doesn't prevent you from doing that in the future. So that's a WMCP in a nutshell, and your WMCP in a nutshell. What are the next steps? So we've submitted the draft water management conservation plan to the Oregon Water Resources Department. We submitted it in mid-October. They have up to 3 months to review the document and provide comments back. And every time we submit a WMCP, and we submit dozens of these, we submitted dozens and dozens of these, they always come back with comments. So it's our opportunity then following to make revisions to the WMCP, answer the questions, and then submit a final to them. Following that final submission, typically takes them about a month to turn around and provide a final order approving the water management conservation plan. So we're looking, I anticipate getting the comments back probably by mid-January, and then receiving a final order after we make revisions to the WMCP, about a month thereafter.
Then I have a question about that, Mr. Chad. Because we've already submitted, and there's going to be some minor changes in this, do we have to resubmit, or can we just list out these as minor changes and give that to them with the final copy?
Yeah, since it's in it's in a draft form right now, and the changes that I've seen aren't substantial enough to warrant having to resubmit. There's some minor changes here and there, but nothing of significance. So I think we're okay. When we send the final to OWRD, I actually missed a step, Chad, just for expediency, but we submit actually a red line draft final to them. So that's actually the next step, in which case we'll highlight all the changes that we've made in red line, and they'll have an opportunity to take a look at all of those. Then they'll approve that red line, and then we'll send the clean version for the final. So we're in good shape. Yeah.
Thank you.
With that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the WMCP.
While on the subject, what are the usual comments you get back from those guys?
Well, it's interesting you ask. So I'll be honest, it depends on who's reviewing. There was just a turnover, and previously the person that was reviewing, oops. I can still see you. Can you see me?
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay, there we go. There was a little glitch. Typically, the latest comments previous were a bit of a moving target. They kind of changed regularly, to be honest with you, which was a bit hard to kind of nail down exactly what OWRD wanted. We do have a new reviewer, and that person reviewed my last WMCP, received a review from her for the first time. And there were only 2 comments, and they were super insignificant. One was about what fish are located in the stream that the water diverts water from, that the city diverts water from. And I forget what the other one is, to be honest with you, but insignificant enough to not remember.
So it's not a significant change in the structure or most of the content.
Typically, it's not really.
Yeah.
And your WMCP will be a relatively easy one for them to review, because you're not asking to gain more access to your permit. You've already developed the entirety of your permit and submitted what's called I don't want to get too deep here, guys, but already submitted a claim of beneficial use, which once approved, will convert your permit to a certificate, a water rights certificate, which is much more secure than your permit. So because you've already developed that and have submitted this claim of beneficial use, OWRD, you're not asking for more water, access for more water to your, for your, associated with your permit, which is good news. So I don't anticipate that they're going to really provide much scrutiny on this WMCP relative to other WMCPs of other water providers that do need more access to their permit.
And just follow up on that, Tim, when did we submit a claim of beneficial use? That was some time ago.
So, sorry, Chad, you broke up a little bit.
I'm sorry, when did we submit our claim of beneficial use? I think that was some time ago.
It was, I want to say it was like in 2016, if my memory serves.
When the report, it was 2014.
Yeah,
So that was one of my questions. What's the holdup? Is that normal?
OWRD, they're very slow. And one thing that you can do, Chad, I know that you're working with Chris Hyatt. You might want Chris just to check in with OWRD and just make sure that that everything is kosher with them and it's just waiting in the queue.
That's kind of where we're at. We did do that, and that's kind of where we're at. Okay, so we're just waiting on WRD to give us their approval on that.
Yeah, but we haven't caused any of the delays.
No, this was submitted in
I
14.
know-
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it just fell into something that was there, but Chris Hyde called them, I think, a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago.
He's been in contact with them a lot. Last I talked to Chris, he told me there's some still on the books from 30 years ago that haven't been signed off because they just haven't got to them. So WRD's been so shorthanded, it's just it's been crazy trying to get anything done. And from what I've been told, they have hired some new people and they're trying to get some of this stuff off their list. So, but that was just recently. So have you heard anything else, Tim? That's what I've heard. But.
No, you're right. And that's our experience too of late with OWD. They're getting farther and farther behind on this stuff. And, they'll focus their energies in one area and to the detriment of another area. But you're right. It's a staffing issue. And as a matter of fact, they're not even providing estimates of time to review new water right applications. So they're hurting.
It's a little bit comical because I didn't know what that was. So I looked it up today and I found something that they do where it looked like some kind of a PowerPoint that they present to people to tell you, like for 101, dummies or whatever. And it basically hit on, you have to be timely, you have to be timely, you have to be timely. And I'm like, oh, okay.
So if I don't submit my stuff in time, I get an nasty notice, but if they
So just
don't.
remember, you have to be timely.
Yeah, it's a hurry up and wait.
Yeah, okay, got it.
And really, on the whole grand scheme of things, we're timely on everything that really matters to the WRD and performance of our system.
Right.
We've got some things that we do need to improve on, and those are also listed out in this report under the heading of the first few pages. And we'll get there under the benchmarks. We're calling them 5-year benchmarks, but many of them are going to be able to be more easily accomplished prior to that. The other thing that should be said is that our system is operating pretty well. I think that a lot of the changes that Mark made recently also is helping us to provide more water to the city in the summertime from our groundwater, and then using less over time from the city of Warrenton and the city of Seaside. We've never really opened up the intertie with Seaside except for once to provide them with some water.
Right.
But we haven't needed that intertie with them. So the way that the aquifer is performing, basically, we're not seeing, it's partially in this report, is we're not seeing any negative effects on the groundwater aquifer that we're pumping from. We are seeing very slight portions where it goes down at the well, but it recharges almost within.
I mean, we have like I said, our hydrologist, geologist, he looks at the numbers and everything that I give him every month, and there's never been a red flag or anything that was concerning at all. So, and this has been going on for 12 years now. So, if anything, some of it's gotten a little better, believe it or not. So,
Such as
the test results like
So,
chloride and TDS, so which would indicate, saltwater intrusion if those numbers start going up. Never happens. So,
as a matter of fact, they've gone down.
yeah, and I was curious kind of after the dry summer we had here, seeing what my tests were going to be in October. There was no change. So.
On the
I'm not
monitor.
saying it won't, but I mean, you never know. But I mean, as far as what we're seeing, so
Going into the monitoring, section 2.9 says water right. And the last sentence says, see section 2.9 for more information about the
Yeah.
plan and monitoring results. I had a question if that was a typo or if there's another section 2.9 that I wasn't seeing.
No, that is a typo. Good catch. I'll make a note of that.
Yeah, and Mayor Smith found another one just like that already notified him.
But I think that says, though, I didn't see where that monitoring result data was in the plan, so.
well, our monitoring result is in a different plan. It's the other plan we do every year that I believe you guys saw already for this year. It's our groundwater report that our Geotech does once a year. That gets submitted to WRD. So we have 12 years worth of that. So
And again, no negative impact on the groundwater, no saltwater intrusion increase. We monitor to see if saltwater is actually intruding into our aquifer. But basically the water that's flowing underneath us and pushing this seawater away. But we have some wells that are in front of our main production wells
Yeah.
that we run tests and we monitor to see if the salt is increasing or decreasing.
we got 3 of them out there in the dunes, and they take a reading every 2 hours on about parameter, about 10 different things. So.
And then the epoxy stuff.
And the epoxy is actually required to be drawn every 15 minutes for some reason. I never understood that one, but
Yeah.
that's what we do. We follow the rules. So,
That's probably to do with tidal fluctuation.
yeah,
But
but
that's a challenge.
there's a challenge there because when we started those, I was getting phone calls saying, what's with this salt water going up and down and everything? And I was like, you guys got to buy a tide book because this is a tidal. I mean, they didn't really understand the geographic of the Ecoxy Creek and what it was doing. So.
They said, yeah, that's odd, but do it anyway.
But then once you've seen the tide book, you can see it go up with every tide. I mean, if it's just.
Yeah. So no indication of us pulling from, lowering the aquifer and draining.
Is that separate data than the groundwater stuff?
No, that's all included. We have 3 out there in the dunes, and then we have 3 here in town. And the ones in town are mainly to monitor level, basically. And then the one in the creek will monitor mostly level. It's more of like, are we having an impact of taking water out of the Ecoxy Creek, lowering the creek?
Yeah.
So.
Tim, is that data usually incorporated into these plans, or is that as an appendix or something like that?
Right. No, that's a good question. And we discuss the results, but only in summary form and just really kind of reference the general results. So I think we're going to change that sentence because it does sound like the data is provided, and that's not what we intended to do and don't do in these reports. That would be going well above and beyond kind of what's necessary for this report. We try to kind of stick to the important pieces, or rather the parts that OWRD requires.
Because that was one of the comments back from the county was, that there was nothing, the letter from the county asking.
Why do we have an alarm?
Are we self-destructing or?
Went away.
Just had to be.
What problem?
Right.
No, the letter from the county, from Gail,
Yeah.
noting the opportunity to review that, so.
Right.
Yeah, she didn't happen to see that in the report, I guess.
And it's not in there, it's not required to be in here.
Yeah.
That report's not required to be sent to the county either. It's only required to be sent to WRD, but I'm happy to send them the report if that's what they want.
No, that's why I was curious,
Yeah.
if it was supposed to be in this or not.
Exactly, right.
Yeah, typically with these, if they don't want it, don't send it to them.
Yeah,
Like, it's a
exactly.
cancel if we don't
So,
want it.
and this goes pretty much the same place the other one goes, just a different person's desk, so.
Speaking of the notes from the county though, on page 1.1, you notice that it still has not been corrected to the, we're not south of the adjacent city of Seaside.
Yeah.
And then further in on page, these are just the typos that I noticed. I think on page 2.5, it should be the first paragraph. The North Intertie serves, should be an S on there as an emergency intertie.
Following along here with you on the very first sentence.
The very first it's the first paragraph, third line down towards the right. And the North Intertie serves as an emergency intertie.
I see that. Okay, thanks.
And then on page 2-8, where it describes our commercial class of the paragraph just above, below 2.7. So this is on page, it says 2.8 is the bottom page number, 2-8. And then under 2.7 is the section customer description.
Uh-huh.
Go down to the third paragraph there, and you say the commercial class includes an elementary school. We no longer have an elementary school.
Ah, okay.
Right.
So
It is still zone.
is it still zoned for that? So should we leave it that way?
It'll never be a school again.
Yeah, I think that could be taken out.
Yeah, true. Yeah, looking at probabilities, it would be easier to get it out.
Okay.
Okay, we'll remove it.
And those were the typos that I saw, but I do have questions about other stuff that probably are more related to city management than in the report itself.
So Mayor, if you agree, maybe what we'll do is we'll just go page by page, not word by word. And I'll,
Sure, that'd work for me.
the mayor and I had a meeting about this as well. We brought some things up since I've gotten to Tim, and made some changes, so I want to go ahead and make sure that those are clear for you as well. And this is the mayor's portion, and I completely agree. In the 1.1 overview, it says Gearhart relies primarily on tourism for its local economy. That's not necessarily the truth. We're more of a residential community that has a lot of vacation homes. And we're going to go ahead and make a change that reflects that. So it doesn't say that we're a tourism destination, because that's not our bailiwick. And that was the only thing that we had really on 1.1. I didn't have anything on on page 1.2. Unless anybody else did.
I have some questions that relate more to the operation of the city. I don't know if we want to bring that up now, if we just want to go through this and discuss the.
Well, let's see if it might clarify some other things.
Well, I just have some questions about why it says the due date was March 5th. We're doing it now.
As far as this water plan,
Yeah.
yeah, it was just getting everything organized, getting it taken care of. We were attempting to get
We've
it
been
working
working on it that long, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we started prior to March 5th with the intention. Okay.
Yeah, and then we were trying to get grants for this as well, and waiting for that until we found out that we weren't going to receive any grants. And then that's when we went to the city council for the approval to do this. But yeah, we're a little bit behind.
They were okay with that.
And the things that we've called out that we are behind on in this report, are we diarying this stuff so that we don't get, we're not suddenly surprised, or if, heaven forbid something happens and half of us don't get to report at
That's
work
the
tomorrow?
purpose of this,
Okay,
for the most part. Once we publish this, this is our plan.
okay,
And typically, OWRD will send notifications in advance to water providers that notifying them that their WMCP is due in a year or 6 months. So that they often, not always, but they often provide advance warning. And in terms of the delay associated with this, OWRD will be fine with it. There's nothing right. The nice thing about this WMCP and the fact that the city developed, beneficially used their the entirety of their permit is the city isn't waiting for approval to use more of that water. So there's really isn't anything riding on the approval of this WMCP for you. And there won't be any penalty, shouldn't be any penalties or slap on the wrists for it being late. I'll be honest, it's not uncommon for communities to submit these a bit late, and you are a bit late, so it'll be fine.
And this isn't holding up any agreement with Seaside or anything else, that's,
No, but this will help us through future agreements with Warrenton and Seaside, which we need to update. And part of this, and having a good plan, will help them as well.
Okay.
So it's kind of because we're a community that's together, our water conservation efforts directly affect them as well. So this is good to have. All the planning that we've been doing is going to be very helpful. That brings us to page 2.1. I don't have any changes on that. All right, nothing else. I move to 2.2. One change that we found earlier was at the very end, again, of a tourist destination. Third line down from the last paragraph. So we're going to go ahead and redo that as well. This is on page 2.2, last paragraph.
where it says most of these unoccupied homes are occupied at least periodically by short-term renters. Is that an accurate statement?
That is not
Most of
accurate
them?
either, no.
Okay,
So unoccupied homes are occupied, at least periodically by short-term rentals. Are not considered occupied by this, okay, yeah. We're just gonna change that to, again, go to the residential community side of things. And then highlight the fact that many of our homes are unoccupied and are occupied in the season, which shows in every piece of data that we have.
Sorry to go back a page, but it's from 2.2, source of supply. The bottom of the page. 8 production wells. Did I read somewhere that we have the rights for 14 production wells?
Correct.
yes,
Had the right to drill 14, but we only needed 8 to get the water we needed.
So that doesn't change our full use of our permit then,
No,
because we're getting the water that we
Yeah,
get from those 8 wells. not
Correct.
14.
correct. We decided we didn't need all 14 from testing and drilling. So
But if we did have a well failure, it's nice to have those.
they're still there. We're going to still drill them. So
Yeah, okay. So that wouldn't change, if we just say, if we had to do that, wouldn't change our status.
correct.
Have we ever had a well
Yeah,
failure?
I talked to Chris about it. He said
No.
no, it wouldn't. So
Okay.
that's what he told me.
Okay.
What's that?
I just wanted to know if we ever had a well failure.
No, and I hope to not have one, but we have not.
10 years old now.
Everything's up there. It's 12 years
I feel like we should be,
Well, and one of the things is we are running more efficient too, and that's in large part because of the design that Mark did. What was it, a few years ago when we put in the.
Yeah, we put in those brake tanks. That made all the difference in the world. So, I mean, everything looking back, there's things you could change at the beginning if you knew, obviously, and there's quite a few up there. So.
Okay. So 2.1. 2.2, just talked about.
okay, the next page, I know we had this problem with the ramp also. This picture is so small, is there a way to change the landscape, or is that not gonna matter on the final report? They're gonna get a different version that will be much more
We're
clear.
gonna be looking at this as a team, so that's a good call. I think that we can make these images bigger landscape in that plan, Tim.
For
If you don't
old
mind.
eyes like mine, please.
Yeah, page 2.3 and a few others that are in here.
And this is the map you're referring to?
Yeah, like your Water District Service Area map.
Exhibit 2.1 or 2-1.
Right, got it. So you'd prefer this is maybe we can put on 11 by 17.
Or landscape even would be a
Can you-
little bit helpful, just on the 8.5 by 11.
Okay.
But yeah, because we can get these on other pieces of paper, but just to make it as big as possible in this plan. Okay.
You know, it's interesting. It is on landscape in the PDF.
Okay, that was my question, so that's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it printed out right for some,
Oh, okay.
yeah, not for all. Geez.
Yeah.
Oh, I figured.
Story of my life.
So we'll get down into why.
It's because it's. fine.
Well, that was the alarm that was going on. That's
That's
photocopiers. Okay. So 2.5. We're making a little adjustment on paragraph 2.4, section 2.4. Gearhart receives wholesale water from Warrenton through the South Warrenton Intertie and the North Intertie serves emergency interties. It's actually backwards, up south to north, right?
Yeah, and the one's not necessarily an emergency. I had to use both of them this summer just because it's complicated, kind of a long story, but it's not just an emergency. So we use both in the summer, depending upon what our demand is, so. But we mainly use the north one, so those are backwards.
Not a big deal. There's no other changes that I'd recommend for 2.5.
Are you dropping the emergency?
I would, because I use it in not emergency situations, so.
But it's considered an emergency intertie as well, though, right?
I guess, yeah, but
It's that those interties that we have Warrenton, are they considered emergency interties?
You know, I'm not sure.
Okay, well, I don't know that there's a big difference in the definition. We have them.
Yeah.
So we won't, yeah, I don't think we can spend much time on that, but we'll make that adjustment. And maybe leave the emergency in there just
Yeah,
because
that's a
it
good way, sure.
could be. 2.5, those are the recommendations. 2.6. Yeah, it looks like the city has observed a slightly increased trend in water use. That was to be expected, especially over the last 3 years.
yeah, it's gonna be more this year too.
All right, 2.7.
We're gonna buy this year.
2.7 is indicative of what I was talking about. The blue represents what we were able to provide, and the gray represents what we had to purchase. And so we're edging in on that purchase price, or the purchasing of water a little bit because of Mark's efficiencies. And I'm really thinking that there's not much difference. I think that this year we had one hiccup for a few days on the chlorine generator that created a situation where we had to open up Warrenton, so we spent a little bit more money there, but otherwise we didn't have any major downtime.
I think about this wrong, if we have an allocated amount of water we're allowed to use, are we not using that every year?
We're using it in the summer, but not in the winter, because we don't need it in the winter.
The winter gives us the ability to pull this much,
Yeah.
and water resources division in the summer. This much. So it's really a day by day. Is that measured per week?
Well, for instance, like,
I'm just saying, wouldn't that blue line just be the same?
That was my question.
No, we actually improved our making capabilities in the summertime as well.
well, it wouldn't be the same, because like, for instance, this year, April, May, and June, we didn't make a lot of water because the city wasn't using any water. And those are the months we can make as much as we want. So the summer months, the line would stay steady, because summer months, like for instance, August, I think I'm allowed 127 gallons a minute, run at 127 gallons a minute constant. So, but in December, or right now, I can run 600 gallons a minute, but we're only using 100 gallons a minute right now. So, does that make sense? So in the months we can take the water, we're not taking it. In the months we can't take the water, we're taking everything they'll give us. So
So the
You
water
start
rights. will
freezing
look at-
water.
We need more storage capabilities.
We need to start buying Ziploc bags.
They get winter and citrus.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. 2.7, that's illustrating. 2.8, we already talked about the elementary school. That. 2.9, I do not have any changes.
I have something up there, it's the city connections, we're all here. We got on city connections.
So back to 2.7. Go for it, Mark.
It says some of the city-owned connections are not metered. We took care of that, like City Hall, fire station, we put meters on all that now, so that can kind of go away. That's all taken care of.
Did you meter the water treatment plant backwash cycle?
No, but we know on average what it uses when it backwashes, but I'm looking into that. I have calls into a meter company, but it's gonna be the tune of $4,000 or $5,000. But to put an indoor meter and have it measured every month, it's gonna cost some money, but I do have prices out on that.
When were the meters put in?
Those meters?
Within the year.
Because that was gonna be my question as well, is if you had a leak, a water leak on one of these areas in the city, how would you know unless it was metered?
Well, the only one that wasn't metered was the fire station, so, and we took care of
Okay.
it, so.
Thank you.
Everything else, like our irrigation systems metered, our one across the street's metered, our irrigation at the water plant's metered. My water use in the bathroom at the water plant's metered. Am I missing any? I don't think so. City Hall. City Hall is metered, so that's connected in with the fire station. They're all metered, so.
So is Centennial Park gonna be irrigated with meters?
The current,
I
Oh,
don't-
is it currently?
yeah, we have a.
Well, on the plants.
With what we have now.
Yeah.
Okay, but the playground and stuff, all of that, okay,
It could be, but it's not.
all right.
Real quick, when were those meters installed roughly? And the reason I ask is because if this was true through 2021, then I still want to keep this discussion just to note that the city made an estimate of those, but moving forward, that will be, those won't be estimates anymore, they'll be actual.
I don't know.
Seems like a year.
I'd say about a year, so.
No, not even.
I don't think so. I think we put new budget numbers in like May last year. So it's been a
Last
year.
Oh, I think it has, trying to think who was here.
Regardless, we got it taken care of.
Yeah.
And thankfully, there wasn't until we get to fire station.
Justine, you're correct. It's May.
Correct. Thank you, Justin.
Well, that may have been when we started reading it.
So May of twenty
I gave you
twenty-one,
those
May of
readings
twenty
and stuff. I
twenty-two.
remember I gave you that in May, but when we installed it was way before that, so.
I think he needs clarification. Was that 2021 or 2022? May.
Well, I think there was a difference between when we started reading them and when we actually installed the 2-inch one on the fire station. So it actually got into the system later than when we installed it, so.
Is this getting better or worse for you?
So no, I think it sounds like there were meters installed both in 21 and 22. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. That's good enough. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else on 2.8? Started on 2.9. We don't have anything here.
Yeah, I do have some questions. I mean, the estimated consumption was so far off of what we actually ended up having. Is that gonna be a problem for us? Am I reading that incorrectly?
Where you at?
Looking at the top of page 2-9. help me understand this, maybe I'm reading this wrong, incorrectly. In comparison to the city's 2012 WNCP, the city reported an average of 74 mg annual consumption based on data from 2007 to 2010. And the city's 2015 estimated consumption of 75 based on consumption, but that didn't turn out to be our actual. It was actually much higher than that. Is that going to be a problem for us in this report?
It's a good question, and you know, I think where it becomes a problem, or rather, OWD will probably make a reference to this, is the next section, the water loss section, where we show billed consumption kind of jumping all over from 144 to as low as 84.8. And what that does is basically gives you a negative water loss for 4 of the 5 years. And I know when I was chatting with Chad, he feels that the reason of this is due to the utility billing system. So Chad, you want to speak to this piece that?
Sure. So our water billing system, and Justine, jump in if I'm heading in the wrong direction, but Justine, Christy, the crew, in addition to public works guys, have been working extremely hard over at least the last year, and probably longer than that, on making sure that things are more accurate with our system. We had a lot of old information in our database and some problems that were occurring that we just didn't know how it was affecting us. And then when we came through this plan and started looking at the numbers, we realized that we had even more of a problem. So we delved into that, and I think we solved a lot of the issues that were the problems with the database. There is some reporting issues we'd sure like to be able to catch some of these things. But I think for the most part, we are much more accurate than what we were. Justine, can you clarify that?
I think technology maybe wasn't one of the strong aspects of a user that was here before. And so it was a matter of really making adjustments and doing things that were not like a correct procedure. And so I think some of those adjustments manipulated the numbers just by operator error. So Christy did most of the cleanup during COVID, working to try to get systems in place and right procedures for when you make adjustments and you do things. And I think that we've gotten a better handle on it moving forward. To me, it's not always a user-friendly for reports, to pull reports. And then the water system also has a different billing cycle than the plant's production records. So sometimes you're comparing a 2-month cycle to a 1-month cycle. We're comparing from the 20th to the 20th, and the plant's doing from the 1st to the 30th. So there's interesting numbers to try to just work through that to see how the patterns work and how those flow. So still working on getting those systems out and worked on.
Okay, because when I read this, I had two concerns. Number one, whatever the issue was, do you feel comfortable that we fixed it going forward, or is this going to be a continuing problem for us?
I don't think we're 100%. But I think we're close. We're much farther along, and you can tell that by the numbers also that we're using, that our production is now more in line the way it should be. 110 billed consumption, demand 117. So that puts it into the right category, whereas the year before we'd actually billed 115, but only produced, according to our system, 114. So we're turning that around now.
Okay.
So things are getting better.
Okay, and again, maybe this is a topic for another time. I don't want to take us into the weeds because I know that's not the point of here. But is this something that you feel would be fixed by the program that we're looking to buy, or that you have tabled on here that we need to buy within the next?
I think that would be a big portion of
Do we
it.
need to move up the date? What I'm saying is, do we need to prioritize that?
We are still working on that, and what we're doing is we're going back at these people and saying, okay, well, we looked at the full boat, that was too expensive. So we're looking at just paring down to the basic of what we need. And we're in the middle of that now, and it'll be a budget issue for this year.
Okay, so, and I told you there were two concerns. The second concern, is there a possibility we have overbilled or underbilled for the last couple of years due to these mistakes?
I don't think so. I think the problem wasn't a matter, it would be like, when let's say the meter read that there was 500 consumption units or 10,000 consumption units. It may be that the process that the adjustment was made wasn't done in a way that reflected it in the system. So this person, it shows the 10,000, but it actually wasn't 10,000 used. So the consumption needed to be adjusted. So we're not sure that those steps were being done correctly.
So people were billed correctly, however, we weren't documenting well.
Correct.
Okay,
Procedural wise.
okay,
So we were documenting more like making the adjustments of the pen and the paper.
okay. So we do need to get a handle on that certainly, but we don't have to worry about people reading this and thinking I've been billed too much for the past 3 years.
No, I don't believe so. And Christy, you're welcome to chime in if you feel differently.
No, you got it.
And we documented that this is more of an administrative thing than it is an actual error, so to speak, or so. And I think one of the, we'll get to this in section 3, but I think one of our conservation benchmarks is that the city will look into and work to rectify these discrepancies. And you know, to your you know, it's not uncommon for communities to have a difficult time with this part, with the consumption and coming up with the aggregate consumption on an annual basis. So your experience is not unusual. Utility billing systems reporting features aren't designed for this type of use, and this type of and they don't produce reports that are typically very useful for these things. So with a new system, I think that should rectify this issue moving forward for you. Plus all the work that Christy and others have done. So, but OWD will I think raise an eyebrow on this when it comes to water loss, because again, the purpose of a WMCP is for the state to know that the city is using their water efficiently, and you know, showing up. And it's hard to know what your water loss is. This is essentially saying that the city is unsure what their water loss is based on the numbers that are being printed from the consumption report. So so that's why we included a benchmark to look into this and rectify the situation. So we'll probably get a comment from OWD on this item, but the city can show progress already on this water loss.
Any other questions about that? All right, and we're down to page 210. 2-10. There's that reference in the bottom of 2.9 to that 2014 submission plan. Okay. On the next page, there is another very small graph that we can work out, other than it works on Mark's paper over here. I found a discrepancy under maximum authorized rate, maximum rate of withdrawal to date. Tim thinks that those were transposed because we have not produced more water allowed to produce. So Tim, did you have anything you wanted to add on that?
No, that's exactly right. You didn't, and we don't want to show that. So, so I've made that adjustment.
Secretly storing somewhere.
Ziploc bags, I'm telling you.
I actually have to submit a report every December on how much water I take out of every well every year, so.
Okay, no other questions there. 13, getting close, because there's the appendices here afterwards. On 213, the only change that I recommended that we make is on the final paragraph, where it says that the Eocoxy Creek is located approximately 600 feet to the east well field. It's actually 2,300 feet.
Yeah.
So we were just a little. But and
Oh,
the creek is north south.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so that's correct. So I already got that to Tim, and he made that change. Other than that, I didn't have anything on 213. We're on 214. Oh, yes, thank you. We've made another correction there. The city's water distribution, this is the last paragraph on that page, includes approximately 23 miles of pipe ranging from 2 to 20 inch. Our largest pipe is 14 inch, so we can change that.
14-inch, you said?
Yes. Do you have another question there? Okay. Yeah, it's 214, 215. I don't have any changes that we suggest.
I have a 215.
Neither do I.
What did I say?
215.
I don't have 215 yet. Why? Page 313, water conservation.
Okay, unintentionally missing a due date, is that gonna cause us a problem?
No, you'll be fine. OWD doesn't. Yeah.
And this is what we're doing here as well. This will also serve as an update as well for this new plan.
So I'm sorry, Chad, what was your question?
Will this serve as an update to
Yeah,
WRD?
Exactly. We're combining the two.
This is our catch-up, gotcha.
Yep, yep.
All the income free and moving forward.
That's right.
Okay, and the next exhibit is 3.1, conservation benchmark progress that you'll see. And we've got some things we will work on.
How many more meters do you have left?
And actually, the reference to that the majority, we haven't changed the majority of our meters out, I think is incorrect. We're gonna make that change elsewhere in here. We've actually changed out, I think, the majority according to Mark.
Quite a few, so I don't have an exact number for you right now, but we have some hiccups and some issues. Hired a couple different contractors and changed out meters. They don't like coming down in the rain, and then they get angry and want more money, and so other problem with that. And then, of course, that's all stopped when COVID hit, because I wasn't allowed to knock on anybody's door without them running away. So you can't turn water off, can't talk to people. So kind of hoping to get back on it this spring and see what we can do. I mean, I've got too small of a crew to be out changing meters all day, so we're gonna have to find something or somebody that we can.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's probably that's something that you guys do in-house or that you usually do.
Yeah, we can do it if we have time, so.
And we have, there's been a lot of change outs in meters that we've done.
I mean, yeah, we've done a lot ourselves too, so.
How long do they usually last?
I think the normal's, 10, 15 years, so.
How do you do a leak detection survey?
Well, it's not as easy around here. In most cities where you got a lot of steel pipe and stuff, it's easier to do, but in sand with AC and plastic pipe, what they do is they'll take a section of town at night and they'll put listening devices on both ends, and they'll go along the pipe with these listening devices and try to find the echo of the water coming out, which is really complicated in pure sand because it doesn't make much of an echo. So they'll connect to a hydrant or something like that. So it's, I've been in contact with people and I've heard them give me these stories that, yeah, we can do it. And then I talk to people that have done it and say, no way, they just want your money. So
You guys plan on doing one soon, or
uh,
it says on your,
I've given some thought to, some of the equipment isn't very expensive. I've given some thought to doing some of it myself at night. And having some of that stuff, because it is handy to have some of that equipment sometime. When you have a leak in the road, you can find it instead of digging out, you know. Because I mean, in sand, you can have a leak here and then 30 feet away, it's coming up. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint that sometimes. So.
Is that something you expect us to get a comment on?
Which piece?
Leak
The
detection.
leak detection, because we can't determine how our loss?
Let's see. This is on the second page of the tables. Is that right? Leak detection.
Right,
Yeah,
three.
Yeah, I wrote the note multiple times between 3-3 and 3-5, because we
I see.
don't.
So it says the city's not performed a leak detection survey since 2012, but has committed to do so in the future, and is one of the benchmarks moving forward. No, since it'll be fine. Since you are committing to do them in the future, it should be fine. Really, I think the focus of OWD will be on the city really finding out what their water loss is. Once you get a handle, or rather, when you do your next water audit, which will show over the next year, which will show your water loss, you may find that your water loss is really, really low, in which case, a leak detection program would be icing on the cake, but not necessary.
Yeah, see, some of this stuff we won't have to do if we can show we don't have a huge water loss. So I think, what is it, Tim? What are they looking for? Under 10%? Is
That exactly, Mark. That's
Right.
what they like to see. That's the golden standard. If you exceed that, then there are some requirements, some prescriptive things that you'd need to do.
Any other questions about that?
No, but under public education, the very last one where it says that literature will be at the public library, Deerfield doesn't have a public library. So unless you specify where material will be.
That's
So-
true. I missed that one.
We could say post office, but we'll make some changes to that, for sure.
Thank you.
And a lot of these things in here are wrapped around the education piece, which we haven't done a good job on, so that's something that we're gonna.
Yeah, it's,
Well,
It was in the 2012 trend.
I'm a firm believer in the public education part, to get some of that information out.
This is the 2012 column,
Yeah.
Yeah, when it's raining and the sprinkler
but we
system
never had
goes
one.
on.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I see that every day, so.
oh, okay, turn it on.
Any questions on 3.3? 3.4?
Where's the supplier finance? Oh, okay, never mind.
3.5? Six.
Chad, I have one comment. Is the first sentence on 3.2, is that first sentence read right? The city assists its customers perform leak detection on site upon request?
Yeah, I think that's when we send our guys out and they read the mirror and take a look at the property.
Yeah, we usually walk around the property, try to.
look for really nice grass
Yeah, right.
when they have a problem.
Or the sprinkler system running when it's raining.
Or when you send the guys out for those
Okay.
amounts that are like way off.
Right.
When we get a huge increase suddenly, they detect that, and then we send Public Works out to reread the meter. Sometimes that's the case, it's just a misread. Other times that's where we find a lot of our leaks that are going around town. And then we work with the customer to fix those. Generally, the problems are on the customer side. So they hire a plumber, take care of it, and then we're able to give them a discount on their water bill, their big water bill, if they find a bill. We have to find, yeah, we have to find what went wrong, fix what went wrong, and then we can give them a discount on the water bill. If it's a big amount that they need some help with. Up to 40% is what we're able to give, typically give. And that seems to be getting a little bit better. Not as many as I used to sign. All right, 3.6. Highlighted these, but our 5-year benchmarks are on these pages, a little bit more clearly stated.
And then if I read this correctly, those also answered the questions that were raised by the county, correct? They noted that those needed to be included. Is that what she was referring to? When the county came back with their response and said that they were concerned about the conservation and that there were no benchmarks, are these the benchmarks that they were referring to, or the?
I would assume so. This is part of what WRD requires as far as, okay, here's where you are, where, how are you going to get to the next level? And so those are the benchmarks, but it would satisfy any concerns, and we'll share this document with them once it's complete as well. I don't remember anything on that sheet that isn't being solved by what we've already done.
Maybe I'm using incorrect terminology. I'm trying to figure it out. Give me just a sec. Ongoing monitoring, no information. Okay. Okay, I'm going to withdraw my question and
Okay, if you come up with one, go ahead. Okay, 3.7.
At the top, it says our meters, most of our meters are over 20 years old. I disagree with that one. So I don't think most of them are over 20 years old.
Okay.
what page are we at?
Top of 3-7.
Starts on 3.6. It says the vast majority of the meters are over 20 years old. I disagree with that.
We'll have to get some better numbers.
We'll see if we can get you some numbers to see what we got. So
If I remember right, that's one of the difficulties we're having with this.
right.
The other change on here is underneath the 5-year benchmarks. Not a change, but just wanted to report on the last bullet point. It says starting in 2023, periodically create a list of meters reading of 0 during peak season. I believe that's happened.
Pretty sure we've taken care of most of those, aren't we? Everyone that we know of. I think we've got those under control.
We do that a lot. I mean, that was one of the things that Christie had started when she was reviewing, and I've continued it. And so we check those. But the problem is many people, surprisingly, I mean, they will not be in the house for 3 years. I know that sounds crazy, but
No, it doesn't. I haven't seen I've seen my neighbor once since I've moved in.
so it is often difficult, but we have caught a lot of them. We keep track, I mean, we do, we look at the reads and we go back from time to time and compare, and then we send Public Works out to review them.
Okay, it's 3.7. Just more benchmarks there, and more benchmarks on page 3.8.
I'm sorry, but somewhere in this last section that we just went through, it said that the city will replace its water billing software in 2 years, within 2 years. And if that's not the case, I think maybe we should take that out. And I got to find it, but
It's on page 3-8 under water loss, second paragraph under water loss.
First line.
I think they mentioned it a couple times.
Yeah, I have it
Yeah,
highlighted
it's just
also.
if that's not happening, then we shouldn't promise or say we're going
But I
to.
think we should try very hard to
It
make
says they
it happen.
tend to. It says we are.
We're gonna need to do something.
Yeah, I don't
Okay,
think we
well,
can put it up.
We're changing the one we thought, or if we're going to get.
It could be either way.
Spring, I mean, I don't wanna bad talk Springbrook too badly, because Springbrook is an organism, you know, people use that software all around the state of Oregon. And so I think that if we stay with that software, we might wanna consider having a professional person come down that works on that software and helps us set it up right, instead of us stumbling around asking questions all the time for every little thing. Because there are people, there are cities that love this software. So, but there are also cities that don't and switch all the time. It's a huge, huge process to switch water, because all of the historical data that you have is lost, or doesn't translate well. And I'm not discouraging it, I'm just saying that it is a very big deal. And as just using that software, we've never had anybody professionally come down and train us.
Do they have that capability?
They do, and they have just, we've tried several times to schedule them, and they just keep losing people, and it's kind of the same thing.
What are our surrounding cities? What does Seaside use? What's Warrenton use?
I think Warrenton uses, I'm sure they use Springbrook.
So maybe if we combine resources and we make it a little bit more interesting to
And
them
they've
and a
been
little bit
helpful.
more, okay,
Yeah, they,
okay. But I mean,
But I see what you're saying.
you know what I'm saying? They may not be
We're
interested in
training.
helping Gearhart, but you know, a larger entity, they might.
Are they based out of Oregon?
I don't know
Are
that,
they national?
I think Springbrook is
I don't know that.
the opposite as well.
Sounds like Yankee system.
And I wonder if they're aware that we're
Yeah,
considering going to a different
Oh,
system,
yes,
and they
they-
might be motivated to get out here and help us. Rather
We've
than
got
lose
12
us.
pages left to go through, and we are 10 minutes past the hour. 10 minutes past the hour designated.
We finished. Let's go.
3-9. Okay,
Take the library out of that thing. Under a bullet point.
Will do.
gotcha.
I'll get rid of that thing.
As the librarian says.
Do we have, we don't have an Earth Day festival.
Tim, she happens to be at,
We talked about a dump day for,
Oh,
Earth
Earth
Day.
Day, yeah.
we can have some
Why not
kind of
call it
stand
Festival.
something, we are looking for a chair for the festival.
Should, one bullet that I made a note to myself, should we require some kind of posting at the short-term rentals that, you know, something like what you see in hotels, where if you don't want us to wash a towel, don't leave them on the floor, leave them hanging up? Could we require that in our short-term rentals, or?
Our Mark's phone number, if they don't.
Yeah, I'm not sure that, I don't think we need to change the ordinance to do that. We could just, probably put all of that data in.
And I don't know if
request
that
them
needs to be in here or something we should just look at on our own.
Yeah, because they're required to have sound mitigation.
Right.
And that sort of thing, so we might be able to put it in that process. And Christie, if you can take a look on that, and then we'll look at it. Okay, through 10 to 11. I don't have any changes. Excuse me, 4-1, not 3-11. Let's call it that. Okay, 4-2 and 4-3, we don't have any changes. These are more about the curtailment measures in case something does happen. Water plant burns down, drought, saltwater intrusion.
I'm not planning on water plant burning down anytime soon.
No.
Define drought. I mean, I know what it is, but how would your define drought? I mean, a period of no rain for 60 days, is that a drought?
Generally, it's the state of Oregon that declares a drought in a particular area. You know something about this, Mr. Austin?
It would be based on what we would, each region would be different. So I don't know how they would decide that.
I know the coastal region is currently not under drought.
Yeah.
And hasn't been
We haven't yet.
for years.
Okay. Because I know Eastern Oregon was under.
There's other parts of Oregon that are very much in drought.
And then fortunately California did drop for 5 to 10
Yeah,
years. So
I just wondered what the definition in Oregon was of drought.
I think when the Lewis River dries up.
Well, and that's one of them. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it would be, it's a water standpoint, it would be the monitoring stuff I do every day. We would see it, the water levels
Mhm.
dropping, and then I'm in constant contact with the operator from the city of Warrenton. I'm good friends with him, and
yeah,
if
you
something were to
guys,
happen, he would call me. So it's
so you guys would be seeing the same data.
Correct,
And you'd be
yes.
like, okay, something's going on.
exactly.
Yeah, so
And I think that the communities, I think our responsibility is to know that we're having troubles.
Right.
And then that's when the city helps makes a big declaration necessary. But even that, we could go without the declaration and go ahead and do our own curtailment efforts because it could be a myriad of things,
I
not just
understand.
drought.
I get it.
It hasn't been, it could be.
is there room for another MG tank up top there?
Probably not, but we did purchase that land, or it was given to us.
Yeah.
That was up there, and we probably could do another tank in that area.
I'd say good fit.
Would have to do another purchase. They'd have to be okay with it. I'd love to have another tank. That'd be great.
Yeah. And that's part of the planning that we need to look at. Right now, we're concentrating on a new potential skid unit at the water treatment facility, so Mark's been working on that.
Because 3 days is a very long time to hold us over.
No, I don't know how that is an average, you know, what do most cities have as far as backup water equipment? You know, how many days do they typically have?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, you're muted.
I put myself on mute, sorry. Typically, I've never seen more than 3 days worth of water. But it really depends on, you know, if is it summer or is it winter? If it's during the summer, then it'll be shorter duration. But if it's the winter and you're dealing with average day demand, then it could be, you know, much longer than 3 days.
And there's other things that factor in with water main breaks, or you got fire somewhere or something else. I mean, I drain your tank right away. So I mean, there's so many things. There's no way to tell how much you need and how long it'll last. It's almost impossible.
And we have a plan for some of those things to be fixed in the SHRAM, the seismic resiliency plan that we just worked on. Okay, so that's 4.2 and 4.3. 4.4 and 4.5, we didn't have any changes, I don't think. Mark?
I didn't have it. It was just the normal stages of what we would do as far as telling people to stop watering and such.
Yeah, there's no trigger for exactly when and where we do that. Kind of by design.
It's kind of a judgment call, basically, so we gotta do something, so.
yeah, that would probably be you coming to Chad and saying,
Right, yeah, we gotta do something.
we gotta do something.
And communicating with the city of Warrenton and Seaside too, because we're all connected, so we would all have the same problem. So
Right.
we can give them water too, so.
Okay. Page 4, 6, and 5.1. I will not add any changes.
I have a question on 5.1. Well, the first sentence, Gerhardt's current service area includes all of the area within city limits and portions of the city's urban growth boundary as shown in exhibit 2.1.
And-
Earlier, they reference also outside the UGB because we have some like Adair Lane and Ocean Home Farms there.
Right,
And they mention that in the introduction. I just didn't know if it mattered. We serve areas outside those two.
So there's agreements made, we do have places outside our urban growth boundary that we do provide water for, and those agreements were made 15 years ago.
Prior to that,
Maybe
maybe
more.
it was before my time. So,
Yeah, before our time, but we're not currently looking at anything else. Right, cottages and Gearhart aside, not looking at that at the moment.
And our comprehensive plan prohibits it, but I get the point though, she's saying, but it doesn't notate that in this, it just says, these are the areas, so if you wanted to update that a little bit, that there are a couple of very limited areas outside of the UGB as shown in exhibit 2.1, because it is shown there, I believe.
And they do on page 2.2, they do say which is contiguous with the city's urban growth boundary and an area due north of the city's limits and an area east of city limits.
Yeah.
So they specify it earlier, I just didn't know if it mattered.
That's a 2 point.
Yeah, so this is section 5.1 on page 5.1. If you could just make it consistent with the prior statement about who we service.
Is 2.1 in, I think 2.1 is in reference to the areas within the UGB, but I think what you're talking about is that you actually serve customers outside of the UGB. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
Yes.
we do have a few, yes.
And then I think you even referenced that in 2.3,
First paragraph,
first paragraph.
last sentence, second to the last sentence.
So her point is that the first sentence under 5.1 is not an accurate statement or completely accurate statement because it does not include the areas that are not within the city limits and not within the UGB. Those are not within the UGB?
Correct. If you look
They
at
are
the
not
map,
within the
they're
UGB
these
and yet we're still
gray.
servicing them. So that first line needs to be updated a little bit to include some limited spaces outside.
We'll make it consistent throughout.
However, your later statement that it's about our comprehensive plan is correct, because going forward, our comprehensive plan prohibits us from giving water outside.
Very good. Okay, we'll make sure that's consistent with section 2.
Doesn't this exhibit 2.1? That show the.
Yeah, it shows all that.
Yeah, that shows correctly, but later in it's incorrect. So we're gonna take what we had earlier,
Right.
what you're measuring, and then duplicate it for
Right.
this particular portion of it. But you're right, yeah.
Yeah.
We got it half right. Okay, what page?
5.1.
310?
Do you want another Diet Coke? Have some coffee.
In this holiday. Okay,
No, 7.51. It's the time.
I tried to go slow.
Thanks.
Kick you down. Okay. 5.1 and 5.2. I don't have any questions.
I got 5.3.
Yeah, on page 5.3, we've got a couple changes. Mayor Smith found that in 5.5, there's a reference to section 5.5. Well, it's a little circular, so Tim made that change already. So it is now noted in section what?
2. We reference section 2. Mhm.
Good.
Okay, yeah, and that does, yes. The other, let's see here. No, no other changes. And after that is appendix. Which we've got work to do on. That's what staff has for us. Questions or concerns? No. moving forward, Tim pointed out to me earlier, is that city councils do not have to adopt this, it's an administrative. But we wanted to make sure we brought it to you, give you familiarization, let you know what we're working on, and have an opportunity to comment, and which has been helpful, as you can see. So I'm not sure, we'll discuss that at a later date on what our next steps with this are, but we'll make these changes. And then if we have consensus from the council, we'll make these changes and then resubmit to WRD after they give us their comments.
Right.
That's the plan.
Okay, so we're gonna put this on the agenda just as a talking item,
Sure, we can have a discussion that we've been through this.
just to let everybody know during council. So it's not like you guys decided at the work session.
Okay.
We didn't. I'm not deciding we'll do it at council that way. Yeah, we don't have backwash.
Appropriate.
And then I'd like to track our progress on the other issue that we had, the billing and tracking water usage. I'd like to make sure that we're on top of that and that if we get any questions as a result of this, I'm able to answer them.
It's one of our top things to do. It's just with some of these other things, had to put it aside and getting the system garbage in, garbage out. The
Right.
work that these ladies and these guys in public works have been doing has been excellent, and it's really improved it. So we didn't want to make any moves until we had a full understanding of how, this thing was being changed, and now we're making those changes. So it'll make our transition, if there is one, a little easier.
Then we should ought to put that on the talking point for the next council meeting, so we can just say something. Are we gonna go for a new billing system, or are we gonna bring someone out of whatever year, Springbrook, and have them, excuse me, I didn't mean to be sexist, bring them down and either fix our system or give people a heads up on how to fix it themselves. If we did that, I mean, push. I'm all for pushing. Okay, anything else? Yeah.
Mark?
No,
Tim?
Chad, now that I'm thinking about this, I think what I would like to do, if you're okay with this, is the only change that I would say is substantive is the water, your water rights table, where we reversed the 1 and 8. So we show that the city used 0.7 more CFS more water than they're allowed to use. I think OWD might catch that. And so what I'd like to do is just reach out to them and let them know, hey, we found an error. So while you're reviewing the city's WMCP, we want you to know that the city's not using more water than they are allowed to use.
No sense in getting them spun up.
no. Yeah. You would think they would look at my records and see that we're not, but they don't talk, the two divisions don't talk to each other, so they're probably
Yep.
wrong.
You're exactly right. And that is the instantaneous amount as opposed to, the annual
Right.
amount. So, yeah.
Exactly.
And then once we get this done, arranged, the next thing that we're currently working on also is a water rate study. And Justine has gotten us some information. There's not a lot of companies that do this, so we're struggling to find one. But we do have a proposal here for a company to come in and do a water rate study to take a look at our fees and the performance of budget in that particular section of the city, the water treatment facility. So we're working on that as well. I like our fees.
We're the contractors in town.
Yeah, I think we're coming to this, with this to you at the city council meeting. So,
Anything else? Anyone? Nothing else?
nope,
Work session over.
sir.
Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
So, they don't even come back out, maybe that needs to,